Hi again. I'd like to continue with the discussion of manipulating and controlling the DOM with JavaScript, right? So where were we? In the last video, we talked about querySelector and we compared it to getElementById, right? What if we wanted to do a little bit more? Like, for example, what if I want to find all of the divs on in my document? Okay, so in that case, we want our selector to return a collection or an array. Okay, so what we'll use is I'll do constant. I'll call it divs with an S, and we'll say document dot get. Actually, let's do query selector all. Okay, so querySelector returns the first element. querySelectorAll returns all elements, right? Okay, great. So why don't we say return div, right? So this is, if we were using a tag name like we did with button here, we can just say div, and this will return all elements that are type div. And if we console log this to see what it is, then let's save it here and get the browser here, and I'll refresh it. Oh wait, I got div is not defined. Wait a minute, I forgot the S, right? There we go. Oh, it says node list 4 items, right? So it's div A, B, C, and B again, right? So I've got, one div here is A, 2, 3, and then number 4 is here, right? This is kind of a mistake. We really shouldn't have 2 elements with ID with the same ID name, right? We just did that as kind of an example, right? So in general, like, that's bad practice, right? So keep that in mind. But anyway, now we've found all of the divs. Now here's a note. This divs right here kind of looks like an array, but you can see it says node list. So a node list is an array-like object, which is actually a thing in JavaScript. Okay, so you can have a thing that is like an array but is not quite an array. So array-like objects have some different methods and properties from array, but in many cases they act like an array. Okay, so just so you're aware of that, right? And we'll talk a little more about those later. But essentially, querySelector gets everything. Okay, this is the same as using one of these other methods, right? So I'll just show you a couple of more of these, right? I'm going to say div, how about tags, right? And if I say document dot get elements with an S by tag name, right? I can do the same thing that we did with the querySelector here, but it's specific to tag names, right? So I could say div, and this would give me all the divs for that tag name. And then I could say div tags, right? Oops. Oh, I guess I did it lowercase, right? So there we go, right? So we'll do get elements by tag name div, and then we'll print those tags out here. And if we look here, if I refresh this, you can see this says node list, and it gives me all of the divs. And then below it, the next one, it says HTML collection, right? And then it shows me all those divs right here. Now, here's a note. Node list and HTML collection are 2 array-like objects. They're a little bit different, okay? But they're like arrays, but they're not quite the same, okay? And they have some interesting features. I think HTML collection, if I recall, is a live collection. So when you update, and I think NodeList does this too, if you were to update the DOM by adding another div, right, then it would automatically update and that div would appear in your collection without you having to get the elements again. Okay, so they have some interesting features. We'll get more into that later. Okay, but anyway, just so you know, so if you're going to get a single element, we can use getElementById or querySelector. If we need to get a group of elements or a collection, we're going to use querySelectorAll or something like getElementsByTagName. And there's also getElementsByClassName and a couple others. Okay, so anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope that is interesting.